All right, all right, all right. Testing, testing, check, 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 check. I don't know what to say. Somebody say EOS R5 R5 R5. I don't think I need to say anything else. Do we? Let's go. Woo! Listen, guys, I'm really I'm kind of shocked, surprised, chagrined about Canon's announcement. Well, not announcement, now release of the specs and the pricing of the Canon EOS R5. Now, 5 and 6, I should say. Now, before I go any further, this is not a total review. This is just my opinion. I don't have any unique footage. Canon didn't send me out any camera. Full disclosure, I am a Sony user. I transitioned from Canon to Sony about 3 or 4 years ago, and now I have I have a Z cam that I'm using. So I actually don't own any Canon cameras at all. I own some Canon glass, but this video is really just a reaction video. It's really just a video to talk to you, to really get your thoughts on the EOS R5. I mean, this is bananas. I feel like if I was a Canon user, which I was back in the day, I would feel like, you know, Whoopi Goldberg in the Color Purple.
Everything you've done to me, already done to you.
You know, like this whole sort of like, man, Canon has been such a spoof, has been such a really a joke for a few years now in terms of their approach, in terms of just giving what their base wanted, right? In my opinion, they just kind of dropped the ball so many times when they were the leaders. They were the ones that started this sort of like digital video in small form factor packages movement, right? With the 5D Mark II. And ever since the 5D Mark II, it just felt like they were playing catch up. It felt like they were always trying to figure out how to sell more cameras to low-end content creators, but then also protect and not cannibalize their cinema customers and cameras that they had. And for me, it's just like, just listen to your base. Just listen to your base. Your base wanted, you know, super slow-mo. They wanted 4K. They wanted 60 frames per second. They wanted 120 frames in 1080p and in 4K if possible. They wanted the flexibility of being able to shoot a really high-resolution image. They wanted a flip-out screen, great battery life. Obviously, Canon has great menu systems and something that they could streamline into their workflow. And Canon actually did it. Canon actually did. I can't believe it. I mean, I was the first one. I was very skeptical. I didn't think they were going to do it. And Canon did it. And not only did they deliver 2 cameras, but they delivered 2 cameras with significant feature upgrades that, in my opinion, have brought them either on par with all the other camera options that are out there right now in the market, or surpassed most of the cameras that are out on the market. So let's talk about the specs here. First things first, let's talk about the EOS R5. This is a 45 megapixel sensor, 45 megapixels. So that means, you know, you can do pretty much anything you want to do. Landscape, detail photography. I mean, obviously wedding photography. You can do so much. You can recrop, resize, you can edit. There's going to be so much information based upon the fact that they're raw files that are super large, 45 megapixels, which is on par with any sort of high-end, high-resolution camera out there. So in terms of continuous shooting or sport photography shooting, you have up to 12 frames per second, which is dope at the full resolution. We have a 5-axis IBIS stabilized sensor, which is welcomed. I mean, that should be a standard on pretty much every camera outside of a cinema camera, but like any of these sort of DSLR mirrorless cameras, they should all have IBIS by now. It's just a great technology. If you don't know what that is, you should just Google it, check it out. It's a really, really great feature. What I want to talk about is the video, right? Everybody has been talking about 8K, 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 8K. Oh my God, 8K raw, 8K. And I was like, you know what? When I heard about this, I was like, yeah, sure. Canon ain't doing no 8K raw, bit, internal, whatever. This is all just fanboy Canon stuff. I was there. If they if Canon actually delivers on all of these crazy stuff, then I might even just sell all my gear and get it. 8K raw internal? Oh my Lord, 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 Lord. Oh my Lord, Lord, Lord. I'm still blown away by that, because Canon in the past has always been notoriously devious about, you know, trying to push forth features that we didn't really ask for. So for instance, I remember in the 5D Mark IV, when that was announced, all people wanted was 4K 30 or 4K 24 frames or whatever else. And what we got was like 4K, but it was really clunky. We don't just get 8K in this camera, but we also get 4K 60 and 4K 120, which to me is the bigger selling feature. I don't know how much people are going to use 8K. I personally don't need 8K. And if I had the camera, I probably wouldn't use 8K that much. But the 4K 120 frames per second and the 4K 60, for sure, without a doubt, I'd be using that every day, every opportunity I could. So again, being able to have those features, those high-end features in a relatively small body is phenomenal. I mean, kudos to Canon. So let's talk a little bit about codecs really, really quickly, because again, this is something that's really important as well. This camera shoots RAW, 8K RAW internally. It also shoots H.265 at 10-bit 422 in 8K, also in 4K, and also in 1080p, which is great. It has all the flavors of frame rates that you would get in any other tier of that codec. It also allows you to record in H.264, 8-bit 420, which is something that we're accustomed to. Most cameras, most mirrorless cameras, we're shooting in that sort of codec and in that bit rate or color space, and that will allow you to record in 8K, in 4K, and in 1080p. So again, we have a lot of different various options. You can shoot in 24 frames in 8K, and 30 frames in 8K, and 4K. You got your flavors of 120 frames per second, 60 frames per second, 50 frames, 30 frames, and 24 frames, as well as doing time lapse and things of that nature. So this camera uses the CF Express cards, Type B cards, as well as the SDXC UHS Type 2 cards. They're using the highest, fastest, most expensive cards you can use in this camera, but it's for a good reason. Okay. Now let's talk about the price point, okay? Now, a lot of people thought that this is probably going to be $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. There's no way that they would make a camera that would essentially cannibalize their higher end DSLR cameras. And Canon said, nah, differently though. We're gonna just mash up the whole thing, and we're just going to, show you what we can do now, because differently, we're tired of being the butt of your jokes. So we're gonna show you that we're still the king of DSLRs, SLRs, mirrors, and any type of photography that you think you need to have. Translation, I'm gonna show you something. So they did. The price point is $4,000 American, which is about 5,300 Canadian. Now, many people might think that may be expensive. I think that that's actually pretty reasonable when you think about the features that are involved or are implemented into this body. It's actually worth it. Now, again, if you add in the cost of lenses, and let's be honest, most of these RF lenses are like, I don't even know, like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, respectively. It can be pretty pricey to get a body and a lens. You're going to be spending about, I would say, $8,000, right? Canadian. But on the other hand, 8K. Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that was these cameras are still limited to 30 minutes of video recording straight. So after 30 minutes, it stops, and then you have to start the record button again, and it'll start recording again. So that's something to keep in mind. It's just a little tax thing that Canon always wants to avoid, and it's not really a big deal. We've been dealing with it for over 10 years or close to 10 years, or maybe more than 10 years. Yeah, more than 10 years. It's not really a big deal. So what are my thoughts ultimately? Ultimately, I think that this is a great step for Canon. I think that Canon has made leaps and bounds to be back in the game. Do I think that they are now setting the standard and setting the trends for everybody else in the mirrorless world? Not really. Their photography features in these cameras are great, but they're basically on par with whatever Sony's coming out with, whatever Panasonic has, and whatever Fuji has. With regards to the video, yes, 8K is the big thing that people are saying now. It's leaps and bounds ahead, but really and truthfully, 8K was inevitable, right? 4K is... Everybody has 4K now, right? 4K is really the standard by which consumers and creatives desire and require out of all their cameras, right? 1080p is not a standard anymore, at least in terms of content creators and digital professionals like myself. So really, they were just first to market. They're first to market with an 8K camera, and for that I give them an applause. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're really so much far ahead of the pack now. I think that, the next camera that Sony comes out with, it's probably going to have to be 8K. The next camera that Panasonic comes out with, it's going to have to be 8K. Everybody's going to be doing 8K because they've already mastered 4K, right? And it's going to be variations of 8K. Now, the one thing that I will say about the EOS R5 that really is stroking my interest is the RAW, the internal RAW. That right there is a game changer. And that's something that I think is worth its weight in gold if it really works out that way. If the RAW is as good as any RAW you would get on any other Canon camera or any other camera system. But I want to know about, I heard in certain forums and groups, Facebook groups, that there's overheating issues. So I want to know about that, or potentially overheating issues. And I mean, let's be honest, with a form factor that small, to be able to shoot 8K RAW, 12-bit, it's going to probably have some overheating issues or something to that nature, because cameras weren't designed to record 8K in a small body like that. So I'd love to see that, and I'd love to see where the rest of the industry goes. Now that we've seen Canon's sort of response to the market, I want to see the market's response to Canon and see what happens there. Am I going to switch over? Probably not. I've made an investment into Sony, and I'm enjoying Sony glass and gear and that Sony ecosystem, as well as the Zcam ecosystem. So I think I'm good on that front. Am I tempted? For sure. I am definitely very tempted to switch back over, to at least try it, to maybe pick up one, maybe the EOS R6, just to try it out. But overall, I think that ultimately it comes down to you. It comes down to how you want to create. What do you want to create? Because at the end of the day, camera manufacturers are out to do one thing: to sell cameras. They're not out to make the best films, to equip you with the best tools to be the best filmmaker you can be, or the best digital storyteller you can be. You're the one that has to do that. So you have to make the decision yourself as to what is important to you. What do you really want to focus on in terms of tools that you want to invest in to be the best digital storyteller, the best creative you possibly can be. And once you figure that out, then you're good, right? So I'm not going to tell you to buy it. I'm not going to tell you not to buy it because it's damn good. I mean, 8K, but I think it's really important to ask yourself the question, if you already own a camera, if you already have gear and you're already creating, is this a camera that's going to make you create more? Or is it just getting you excited about being able to create, the same things that you're creating right now with the cameras that you have, just in a higher resolution? Anyways, those are my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please comment below, share this video, give this video a thumbs up if you like it. If you have any questions, I would love to hear your questions as well. And please consider subscribing to the channel. Until the next time, stay creative. Peace.